welcome. Tonight, we journey into the life of one of history's most feared and admired leaders, Genghis Khan. Rising from the harsh steppes of Mongolia, he transformed warring tribes into a disciplined war machine, forging an empire that stretched from the Pacific Ocean to the heart of Europe. His name inspired terror, yet his rule reshaped the world in ways few could have imagined. Who was the man behind the legend? How did he rise from exile and hardship to command the greatest army of his time? What secrets lay behind his military genius? And how did his empire endure beyond his lifetime? So, sit back, relax, and let's step into the vast, windswept plains of 12th century Mongolia to witness the birth of an empire and the rise of Genghis Khan. Genghis Khan's journey began not as a ruler, but as a boy named Temujin, born into a world of conflict and survival. In the vast and unforgiving Mongolian steppes, life was brutal, dictated by shifting alliances and endless battles between rival clans. Strength meant everything, and the weak were left behind. It was in this harsh environment that Temujin took his first steps toward an empire. He was born around 1162 into the Borjigin clan, the son of a minor chieftain named Yasuge. His birth was said to be marked by a sign. He was born clutching a blood clot in his fist, a traditional omen of a great warrior. From an early age, he was taught the ways of the steppes, how to ride, hunt, and fight. But before he could grow into his father's role, disaster struck. Yasuge was poisoned by rival Tatars when Temujin was still a child. Without a strong leader, his family was abandoned by their clan, left to fend for themselves in the wilderness. His mother, Holin, became his greatest teacher, instilling in him the resilience and determination that would define his life. They survived by foraging, fishing, and stealing scraps when necessary. Hunger and hardship shaped Temujin, making him ruthless and resourceful. Adversity followed him into his teenage years. When he was around 16, he was captured by the Taichiu tribe and enslaved. With a wooden collar around his neck, he was humiliated and treated as property. But even in captivity, he observed, learned, and waited. Eventually, with the Sumayash help of a sympathetic guard, he escaped, vanishing into the steppes. This experience reinforced a lesson he would never forget. Loyalty could be powerful, but betrayal was always a risk. Upon regaining his freedom, Temujin sought to build alliances, not just through brute force, but through strategy. He married Berta, a woman from the Conqueror tribe, strengthening his political connections. But soon after, Berta was kidnapped by the Merkit tribe, a humiliating blow that he refused to accept. Rallying support from a powerful Khan, he led a daring raid and rescued her. This victory was more than just personal. It marked the beginning of his rise as a military leader. Through cunning diplomacy and brutal efficiency, Temujin began gathering a loyal following. Unlike traditional Mongol chieftains who relied on tribal loyalties, he promoted men based on merit and loyalty rather than noble birth. This radical approach attracted warriors eager for opportunity, creating a disciplined force bound not by blood but by allegiance to their leader. his rise was not without struggle. Rivals saw his growing power as a threat, and he faced betrayal from former allies. His childhood blood brother, Namuka, once a close friend, turned against him, leading an army to crush Temujin's forces. In one of his darkest moments, he was captured and brutally tortured. Many of his men were executed in horrifying ways, some boiled alive. But Temujin, through sheer will and the loyalty of his closest warriors, escaped once again. For years he fought to unite the Mongol tribes. Under his command, victory after victory, he crushed opposition, absorbing clans into his growing empire. His army, disciplined and fiercely loyal, grew stronger with each conquest. By 1206, his dominance was undeniable. In a grand assembly known as a Kurultai, the Mongol tribes officially declared him their leader. He was no longer just Temujin. He was now Genghis Khan, meaning universal ruler. This moment marked the birth of the Mongol Empire, a force unlike any the world had seen. The boy who once scavenged for food in the wilderness now commanded an unstoppable army. But his ambition did not stop at Mongolia's borders. He had united his people, but the world beyond was vast, rich, and waiting to be conquered. As we continue, we will explore how Genghis Khan transformed a band of nomadic warriors into one of the most feared military forces in history, using tactics and discipline that would forever change the art of war. Genghis Khan's rise was built not only on ambition, but on a revolutionary approach to warfare. The Mongols had always been skilled horsemen and archers, but under his leadership, they became the most feared military force of their time. He transformed disorganized tribal raiders into a disciplined army, trained in strategy, deception, and relentless speed. Unlike the great European knights or Chinese warlords, his warriors fought not in heavy armor, but with precision, mobility, and ruthless efficiency. At the heart of his army was the Tumans, units of 10,000 soldiers, each divided into smaller groups of 1,000, 100, and 10. This structure made his forces adaptable, able to move swiftly and strike unpredictably. Every soldier carried multiple horses, allowing them to ride for days without rest, switching mounts to maintain their speed. They could cover vast distances, appearing where the enemy least expected them, vanishing before a counterattack could be mounted. Genghis Khan valued skill and discipline over noble birth, a rare concept in medieval warfare. He promoted soldiers based on merit, rewarding bravery and loyalty rather than lineage. This gave even the lowest-born warrior a chance to rise, creating an army fiercely devoted to their leader. Training was relentless, with soldiers perfecting their ability to fire arrows accurately while galloping at full speed. They practiced riding in formation, using signals and banners to coordinate attacks without needing spoken commands. One of his greatest strengths was psychological warfare. Before launching an attack, he often sent spies to spread fear, exaggerating the size and brutality of his forces. He used terror as a weapon, making an example of cities that resisted him. If a town surrendered peacefully, its people were often spared. But if they resisted, he showed no mercy. Entire populations were wiped out, their cities burned to the ground, their ruins left as warnings to others. News of these massacres spread, leading many to surrender without a fight rather than face the wrath of the Mongols. His tactics relied on deception as much as brute force. The Mongols frequently used feigned retreats, pretending to flee in panic only to lure their enemies into an ambush. This strategy worked time and again, even against the most experienced generals. In sieges, they used captured engineers to build siege weapons, adapting to any challenge. When facing fortified cities, they cut off supplies, isolated defenders, and even diverted rivers to flood enemy strongholds. But Genghis Khan was not just a conqueror. He was a strategist who understood that a great empire needed more than war. He implemented a strict code of laws, the Yasa, which demanded discipline among his soldiers and loyalty among his people. Theft, betrayal, and desertion were met with severe punishment, ensuring that order was maintained even in his vast and growing empire. As his power grew, he set his sights on the greatest prize of all, China. The rich lands of the Jin and Western Xia dynasties had long looked down on the Mongols as mere barbarians. Genghis Khan would show them otherwise. His invasion of China would be his first major test, a battle not only against massive armies, but against walled cities and advanced warfare. As we continue, we will follow the Mongol invasion of China, where Genghis Khan would prove that no wall, no army, and no emperor could stand in his way. The Mongol invasion of China was unlike anything the region had ever seen. For centuries, the Chinese dynasties had viewed the steppe nomads as little more than raiders, dangerous, but ultimately disorganized and unworthy of serious concern. The Great Wall had long served as a barrier against these northern tribes, and the powerful Jin and Western Xia dynasties ruled vast, well-defended cities. But Genghis Khan was different. He did not come as a mere raider. He came as a conqueror, determined to break the power of the Chinese kingdoms and bring them under Mongol rule. The first target was the Western Xia dynasty, a kingdom in northwestern China. In 1209, Genghis Khan led his forces across the harsh deserts and mountain passes that protected Xia territory. The Xia had strong defenses and well-fortified cities, but they underestimated the Mongols' ability to adapt. The Mongols cut off supply lines, diverted rivers to flood farmland, and used Chinese engineers, captured from previous battles, to build siege weapons. After a brutal campaign, the Xia surrendered, agreeing to pay tribute to the Mongols. But Genghis Khan was not done. Years later, when the Xia hesitated in providing support for his later campaigns, he returned and annihilated their entire kingdom, wiping them from history. With the Western Xia defeated, Genghis Khan turned his attention to the Jin dynasty, which ruled northern China. The Jin had a powerful army, heavily fortified cities, and had long dominated the Mongolian steppe, treating the nomads as inferior. In 1211, Genghis Khan led his forces south, moving past the Great Wall through mountain passes and open plains. The Mongols struck with terrifying speed, using their classic hit-and-run tactics to wear down the larger Jin forces. The Mongols were relentless. In open battle, they outmaneuvered the slow-moving Jin armies, surrounding and cutting them down with precision. In sieges, they used captured Chinese and Muslim engineers to construct catapults, siege towers, and battering rams, weapons the Mongols had never needed before, but quickly mastered. Entire cities fell, their populations either slaughtered or enslaved. The Jin emperor fled, abandoning his capital, Chengdu, modern-day Beijing, which was soon captured and burned to the ground. Despite these victories, the war against the Jin was long and brutal. The Chinese resisted fiercely, and the Mongols, though victorious, found that ruling such a vast and settled land was more difficult than conquering it. Unlike the open steppes, China had walled cities, vast farmlands, and a complex bureaucratic system. Genghis Khan adapted once again, incorporating Chinese officials into his administration and learning from their advanced methods of governance. By 1234, after years of relentless war, the Jin dynasty was completely destroyed. The Mongols had proven that even the mighty Chinese Empire could fall before them, but Genghis Khan had little time to enjoy this victory. His sights were already set on a new enemy to the west, an empire that had dared to insult him. As we continue, we will follow the Mongols' march into the Islamic world, where Genghis Khan would unleash one of the most devastating campaigns in history, leaving entire cities in ruins and reshaping the fate of Central Asia forever. With northern China under Mongol control, Genghis Khan's empire was growing at an unstoppable pace. But his ambitions did not stop at the Great Wall. To the west lay the Khwarezmian Empire, a wealthy and powerful Persian state stretching from modern-day Iran to Central Asia. Unlike the steppe tribes or the fragmented Chinese kingdoms, the Khwarezmian rulers commanded vast cities, trade routes, and a professional army. Yet, despite their strength, they would soon face a wrath unlike anything seen before. At first, Genghis Khan sought diplomacy. The Mongols had become a major power in Asia, and trade was crucial to their expanding empire. He sent envoys to the Shah of Khwarezm, offering a trade agreement, but the Shah, either out of arrogance or fear of Mongol expansion, made a fateful mistake. He murdered the Mongol ambassadors and executed the merchants they had sent. To Genghis Khan, this was an unforgivable insult. He did not just see it as a political betrayal, but a violation of a sacred law among steppe peoples, the protection of envoys. His response was swift and brutal. In 1219, he gathered an army estimated to be over 200,000 strong and marched westward. The Mongols moved like a storm, sweeping across the Khwarezmian lands with devastating speed. Unlike other armies, they did not march in a single mass, but in multiple coordinated forces, attacking from different directions, cutting off escape routes, and overwhelming cities before defenders even realized what was happening. The Mongols laid siege to Bukhara, one of the greatest cities of Central Asia. As the walls fell, Genghis Khan stood before the city's inhabitants and declared, "I am the flail of God. If you had not committed great sins, he would not have sent a punishment like me upon you." The city was plundered, its people slaughtered or enslaved. This pattern repeated itself in Samarkand and Nishapur, where resistance was met with complete annihilation. Entire populations were executed, with pyramids of skulls left as warnings. To others, the Shah, realizing the full scale of his mistake, fled in panic, abandoning his people to their fate. The Mongols pursued him relentlessly, chasing him across Persia, until he died in exile on a remote island in the Caspian Sea. But Genghis Khan was not satisfied. He ordered his generals to destroy every major city of the Khwarezmian Empire, ensuring that no ruler would ever dare to defy him in the same way again. Beyond sheer destruction, the Mongols also reshaped the regions they conquered. They reopened and secured trade routes, particularly the Silk Road, allowing goods and ideas to flow freely between East and West. While they were ruthless in war, they encouraged commerce, religious tolerance, and the integration of new technologies. Cities that submitted peacefully were spared and often prospered under Mongol rule, while those that resisted faced extinction. The fall of the Khwarezmian Empire demonstrated the terrifying power of the Mongols. No kingdom, no matter how vast or wealthy, seemed capable of stopping them. Yet even as he stood at the height of his power, Genghis Khan was not done. His empire stretched from China to Persia, but one final campaign remained: the march into the lands of the West, where European kingdoms and new enemies awaited. As we continue, we will follow the Mongol expansion into Russia and Eastern Europe, where even the mighty knights of Christendom would come to fear the name of Genghis Khan. With the Khwarezmian Empire utterly destroyed, Genghis Khan's empire stretched from the Pacific Ocean to the heart of Persia. But his ambition knew no bounds. To the northwest lay the vast, frozen lands of the Russian principalities, and beyond them the kingdoms of Eastern Europe. These were distant lands, filled with armored knights and walled cities. But the Mongols had already proven that no fortress, no army, and no ruler could withstand their onslaught. Now the Western world would feel the wrath of the Great Khan. In 1223, Genghis Khan sent an army under two of his finest generals, Subutai and Jebe, to scout and raid the western lands. Their mission was not just conquest. It was a test to see how these distant kingdoms would respond to Mongol tactics. They encountered the Kipchaks, a nomadic Turkic people allied with the Russian princes, and soon after, the forces of Kievan Rus, a powerful federation of Slavic states. The two armies clashed at the Battle of the Kalka River, where the Mongols demonstrated their mastery of deception. Pretending to retreat, they lured the Russians into a devastating ambush, crushing them completely. The Mongols did not stay, instead vanishing back into the east, but they had left a clear message: war was coming. As Genghis Khan aged, his thoughts turned to securing his legacy. He divided his empire among his sons, ensuring that Mongol rule would continue long after his death. Yet, even as he laid these plans, he still sought to expand his dominion. In 1226, he turned his forces back to China to finish what he had started years before. The Western Shah, who had once sworn loyalty to him, had defied Mongol rule, and Genghis Khan would not tolerate betrayal. The campaign against the Western Shah was brutal. City after city fell, and the Mongols showed no mercy. Entire populations were wiped out, the land was devastated, and the Xia dynasty was completely erased from this campaign in 1227 that Genghis Khan's life came to an end. The exact cause of his death remains a mystery. Some say he fell from his horse, others claim he was wounded in battle, and legends even suggest that he was assassinated. Whatever the truth, his death was kept secret until the conquest was complete, ensuring that his warriors would fight without hesitation. His body was returned to Mongolia, buried in an unmarked grave somewhere in the vast steppes. According to legend, to keep the location hidden, the funeral procession killed anyone who crossed their path. Even today, the final resting place of Genghis Khan remains undiscovered. Though he was gone, his empire was far from finished. His sons and grandsons continued his conquests, expanding Mongol rule into Eastern Europe, the Middle East, and southern China. The Mongols would come to rule the largest contiguous empire in history, shaping trade, culture, and warfare for generations. As we continue, we will explore how Genghis Khan's successors expanded his empire, bringing devastation and transformation to lands as far as Poland, Hungary, and Baghdad. The Mongol storm had only just begun. With Genghis Khan's death in 1227, the Mongol Empire did not collapse. Instead, it expanded even further. His sons and grandsons carried out his vision, leading devastating campaigns that reshaped entire civilizations. Though the great Khan was gone, his legacy lived on through his descendants, who would push the Mongol borders into Eastern Europe, the Middle East, and beyond. Leadership passed to Ögedei Khan, Genghis Khan's third son, who was chosen as his successor. Under his rule, the Mongols embarked on one of their most ambitious invasions yet, the conquest of Russia and Eastern Europe. In 1236, a vast Mongol army, led by the brilliant General Subutai and Genghis Khan's grandson, Batu Khan, marched westward. Their forces were unstoppable, sweeping across the frozen plains of Russia and laying siege to the great cities of the Kievan Rus. The Mongols used the same devastating strategies that had worked in China and Persia: speed, deception, and overwhelming force. Cities that resisted were completely destroyed. In 1240, they sacked Kiev, one of the most important cities of Eastern Europe, reducing it to ruins. The Mongols did not stop there. They pushed westward into Poland and Hungary, defeating the European knights at the Battle of Legnica and the Battle of Mohi in 1241. The kingdoms of Europe, accustomed to fighting slow-moving armies, were completely unprepared for the mobility and precision of the Mongols. It seemed as if nothing could stop them. The Mongols were on the verge of reaching the heart of the Holy Roman Empire, when suddenly everything changed. In 1241, Ögedei Khan died, and Mongol tradition required all princes and generals to return to Mongolia for the selection of a new great Khan. The European campaign was abandoned, sparing Western Europe from what could have been total destruction. While Europe was left in ruins, the Mongols turned their attention back to the Middle East. Under Hulagu Khan, another grandson of Genghis Khan, they launched a new campaign against the Islamic world. In 1258, the Mongols laid siege to Baghdad, the great capital of the Abbasid Caliphate. Once a center of learning, wealth, and culture, Baghdad was was utterly destroyed. The Mongols stormed the city, killed the caliph, and burned the great libraries, wiping out centuries of knowledge. Despite their unmatched power, the Mongols eventually met their first real defeats. In 1260, they were stopped by the Mamluks of Egypt at the Battle of Ain Jalut, marking the first major Mongol loss. Around the same time, the empire began to fracture. The Mongols had grown too large, stretching across Asia and Europe, and rivalries between different branches of the Khan's family led to internal struggles. The empire was divided into 4 major khanates: the Golden Horde in Russia, the Chagatai Khanate in Central Asia, the Ilkhanate in Persia, and the Yuan dynasty in China, ruled by Kublai Khan, the most famous of Genghis Khan's grandsons. Under Kublai Khan, the Mongols completed the conquest of China in 1279, establishing the Yuan dynasty and becoming emperors of one of the world's most advanced civilizations. Yet, by this time, the Mongols had begun to settle, adopting local customs and shifting away from their nomadic roots. The empire, once fueled by endless expansion, gradually weakened. By the 14th century, rebellion and internal conflict led to its collapse, leaving only remnants of Mongol rule scattered across Eurasia. Despite its decline, the Mongol Empire left an undeniable mark on history. It reshaped trade, connecting east and west through the Silk Road, allowing goods, ideas, and cultures to flow freely across continents. It influenced warfare, government, and even the modern borders of many nations. Genghis Khan's vision not only created an empire, but changed the course of history itself. As we conclude, we will explore the final legacy of Genghis Khan, how he is remembered today, from the fear and destruction he brought to the admiration for his leadership and military genius. His name still echoes across time, a figure of both terror and legend. Centuries after his death, Genghis Khan remains one of the most complex and influential figures in history. His legacy is one of both destruction and creation, of cities burned to the ground and trade routes that flourished under Mongol rule. He built the largest contiguous empire the world has ever seen, yet his name is often associated with terror, conquest, and bloodshed. Still, to the Mongols, he is not just a conqueror. He is a national hero, the father of their nation, and a symbol of strength and unity. The destruction he left behind was undeniable. The Mongol invasions led to the death of millions. Entire cities were wiped from existence, and empires that had stood for centuries crumbled before his armies. The fear of the Mongols was so great that towns surrendered before a single arrow was fired, knowing that resistance meant total annihilation. Historians debate the exact number of lives lost due to Mongol expansion, but some estimates suggest that as much as 10% of the world's population perished in the wake of their conquests. Yet, beyond the destruction, Genghis Khan was also a builder of civilization. He united warring tribes into a single empire, establishing laws that promoted order and discipline. His legal code, known as the Yasa, enforced strict but fair justice, punishing corruption, ensuring religious tolerance, and even protecting the rights of women in Mongol society. One of his greatest contributions was the revitalization of trade. By securing and stabilizing the Silk Road, he created a vast network of commerce that connected China, the Middle East, and Europe. Merchants and travelers, including Marco Polo, moved safely across Mongol-controlled lands, spreading knowledge, technology, and culture. Paper money, gunpowder, and printing techniques made their way westward, changing the course of European history. Despite being illiterate himself, Genghis Khan valued education and innovation. He gathered scholars, engineers, and artisans from across the empire, blending knowledge from Persia, China, and the Islamic world. He welcomed all religions, allowing Buddhists, Muslims, Christians, and others to worship freely, a rare policy in the medieval world. His rule, though brutal, was also pragmatic. He destroyed those who resisted, but protected and promoted those who accepted Mongol rule. In Mongolia today, he is a national icon. His image is everywhere, on statues, currency, and even the country's largest airport. He is celebrated as the unifier of the Mongol people, a leader who brought strength and prosperity. His name, once whispered in fear across Asia and Europe, is now spoken with pride in his homeland. But beyond Mongolia, his legacy remains controversial. Some see him as a ruthless warlord, a force of destruction that set back civilizations. Others view him as a visionary leader who reshaped the world. The truth, as always, lies somewhere in between. He was both conqueror and ruler, destroyer and creator, feared enemy and respected leader. No matter how he is remembered, one fact is certain: Genghis Khan changed history forever. His empire may have faded, but his influence echoes through time, a testament to the power of one man's vision and the unstoppable force of the Mongol army. His story, both terrifying and awe-inspiring, remains one of the greatest sagas of human history. Thank you for joining me on this journey into the life of Genghis Khan. His empire may have crumbled, but his legend will never fade. We have now reached the end of our journey through the life and legacy of Genghis Khan. From a boy abandoned on the harsh Mongolian steppes to the ruler of the largest contiguous empire in history, his story is one of survival, ambition, and conquest. He rose from nothing, united warring tribes, and built a military machine that reshaped the world. His name became synonymous with unstoppable power, inspiring both fear and admiration across continents. His empire, though vast, did not last forever. After his death, the Mongol domains eventually fractured, and the cultures he conquered reclaimed their own identities. Yet his influence never truly disappeared. The trade routes he secured paved the way for global commerce. The laws he established brought order to the lands he ruled, and his descendants carried his legacy across generations. Even today, historians continue to debate his impact, questioning whether he was the world's greatest conqueror or one of its most destructive forces. But one thing is certain: Genghis Khan changed the course of history. His empire shaped the semi-medieval world, and his strategies, policies, and influence continue to be studied centuries later. In Mongolia, he remains a symbol of strength and unity, his legend woven into the fabric of the nation. Across the world, his story endures, a tale of resilience, strategy, and an unbreakable will. Thank you for joining me on this journey into the life and legacy of Genghis Khan. His empire may have faded, but his legend will never die.